Hello, listeners. My name is Cliff Ratza. I'm the author of 2 ongoing series of novels, the Lightning Brain series and its sequel, the Keeper series. And in addition to being an author and a writing coach, I teach at universities and have a consulting business. If you would like to learn more about me, my books, or my writing coach activities, please contact Prime Solutions via the lightningbrainseries.com website. Now, I try to make videos that I think authors and writers and most people might enjoy listening to. Some of my recent podcasts touch on topics connected to the Ukrainian war. And I try to cover material that you might not see on the news or in YouTube or other videos. I figured that if I can't find a different point of view, there's no reason for me to add something that you can find elsewhere. And now to this podcast. Its title is Ukrainian War Lessons about Electronic Warfare, High-Tech Force Multiplication. Ukrainian war reports talk so much about the advanced weaponry, like stingers and javelins and drones, but they only hint at what guides them. So I thought I'd delve into it, and that's why I'll talk about electronic warfare. This subject holds a plethora of acronyms. Here are 2 I'm sure you already know. Sonar, which is short for sound, navigation, and ranging, and radar, short for radio wave detection and ranging. So, what is electronic warfare? Also referred to as EW. Here's a definition I found online. Electronic warfare, also known as EW, is an action involving the use of the electromagnetic spectrum, or EM spectrum, or directed energy to control the spectrum, attack an enemy, or impede enemy assaults. The purpose of electronic warfare is to deny the opponent the advantage of and ensure friendly, unimpeded access to the electromagnetic spectrum. It is such a comprehensive topic that it is subdivided into 3 subtopics. Electronic countermeasures, that's abbreviated ECM, and electronic countermeasures are electrical or electronic devices designed to trick or deceive radar, sonar, or other detection systems, like infrared or lasers. It may be used both offensively and defensively to deny targeting information to an enemy. By the way, lasers, there's another acronym, stands for light amplification stimulated by the emission of radiation. By the way, lasers were invented in the 1960s. I think it was by Arthur L. Schawlow. Anyway, back to where we are. Electronic countermeasures, that's ECCM. Electronic countermeasures are part of electronic warfare, which includes a variety of practices that attempt to reduce or eliminate the effect of electronic countermeasures, ECM, on electronic sensors aboard vehicles, ships, and aircraft, and weapons such as missiles, torpedoes, smart bombs, stingers, javelins, and drones. Electronic support measures, ESM. Electronic support, also called electronic support measures, are the provisions of military intelligence via a range of electromagnetic surveillance and collection devices, giving decision makers timely insights to their use in electronic protection, electronic attack, or other electronic warfare systems. And there are also electronic information measures, EIM. EIM is the collection and analysis of electronic information that can support all areas of electronic warfare. Another classification scheme is electronic attack, to disrupt, deny, degrade, destroy, or deceive. Then there's electronic protection, preventing a receiver from being jammed or deceived. And electronic support, sensing of the electromagnetic spectrum. And our military and DoD apply these measures to surface ships, undersea vehicles, ground warfare, air, outer space, and also cyberspace. And when discussing electronic warfare, you might hear the term stovepipes. Think of a stovepipe as a vertical channel. Well, in today's electronic warfare, you want to integrate systems, capabilities across all different theaters of engagement. Doing so replaces the stovepipe mentality. This ongoing digital transformation is having a dramatic effect throughout the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Adversaries use the EMS to plan and execute their operations, while friendly forces look to maintain dominance across the joint, all-domain environment. As a result, the Department of Defense and its allies are increasing their ability to see and control the virtual battlefield, thanks to an integration of capabilities from the realms of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, cyber techniques and effects, electronic warfare, information operations. And here are more electronic warfare details supplied by Wikipedia. Electronic warfare is any action involving the use of the electromagnetic spectrum or directed energy to control the electromagnetic spectrum, attack an enemy, or impede enemy assaults. The purpose of electronic warfare is to deny the opponent the advantage and ensure friendly, unimpeded access. Military operations are executed in an information environment increasingly complicated. The recognized need for military forces to have unimpeded access to and use of the electromagnetic environment creates vulnerabilities and opportunities for electronic warfare in support of military operations. Within the information operations construct, EW is an element of information warfare. More specifically, it is an element of offensive and defensive counterinformation. NATO has a different and more comprehensive and all-encompassing approach to EW. And given how important NATO has become for the Ukraine, here's a summary of a NATO assessment of electronic warfare. The article I summarize is Electronic Warfare, the Forgotten Discipline. Why is the refocus on this traditional warfare area key for modern conflict? Well, if people talk about a modern conflict, most agree that such a conflict will be fought in all dimensions possible. That means real or 3D space, cyberspace, the internet, virtual reality. NATO, which is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, has a good view about threats it might encounter on land, on and below the sea, in the air, and in space. Furthermore, cyberspace is increasingly a bright focus area for NATO. Nations continue to develop new weapon systems to operate in these dimensions. But unfortunately, NATO initiatives have, in many cases, not embraced and developed the discipline of electronic warfare. A generation of military professionals has grown up without thinking much about vulnerabilities inherent in operational reliance on the electromagnetic spectrum. Well, NATO defines electronic warfare today as a military action that exploits electromagnetic energy, both actively and passively, to provide situational awareness and create offensive and defensive effects. Watch the news and you'll see all this talk about javelins and stingers and drones. Powerful stuff. Well, Russia has it, and so do we. It is warfare within this electromagnetic spectrum that involves the military use of this electromagnetic energy to prevent or reduce an enemy's effective use while protecting ourselves and force multiplying our ability to attack. Superior weapons and tactics have always conferred advantage in war, and the development of measures and countermeasures is a major thread running through the history of human conflict. Man's use of electricity, electronics, and the electromagnetic spectrum in war has been no exception. In 1888, German Heinrich Hertz demonstrated that electromagnetic sparks could propagate signals into space, and soon after, militaries were employing this technology to improve their conventional operations through advanced communications, navigation, targeting, and battle space sensing. This revolution in military affairs established electromagnetic spectrum as a key component, and this continues at an accelerating pace today because of all the developments in computer science, artificial intelligence, so on and so forth. Our enemies know about this also. The major breakthrough for EW came with the inventions and developments prior to and during World War II. Both the Allied and Axis powers used electronic warfare extensively to attack radar, communications, and navigation systems in what Winston Churchill referred to as the Battle of the Beams, electromagnetic beams. Further advances in tactics and technology occurred during the Vietnam War as air tactics began to change in order to better benefit and counter the electromagnetic warfare capabilities. Through the Gulf War in 1991 and every conflict since, military forces have proven that dominance of the EMS is crucial for most military operations. We're seeing that today. And cyber warfare emerged and dragged a lot of effort, resources, and attention away from traditional EW, which has to some degree viewed as the pure view of high-end militaries and a threat that had faded with the demise of the Soviet Union. Well, recent developments have shown that the Soviet Union is still a force to be reckoned with, and NATO has reemphasized the need to be alert and ready again against any emergent threats coming from Russia and China, which have significantly upgraded their capabilities to operate in the EMS. In eastern Ukraine, Russian-backed forces use sophisticated jamming and interception tactics to undermine communications and surveillance drones. Well, due to the evolution of how NATO conducts operations and the emerging technologies, the focus of EW has shifted from isolated operations to joint electromagnetic operations. And that continues today. Within NATO, EMO involves the deliberate transmission and reception of EM energy for military operations such as communications, navigation, attack, battle space awareness, and targeting. Today, the dependency of military operations upon this is now a central facet of almost all military activities. Several factors pose a challenge to NATO operations, and they're continuing to address them and improve our position. The challenge for NATO commanders is to be able to dominate those elements of EME they need in order to support NATO operations at the time and location required to achieve mission objectives while denying the same to the adversary. In other words, eliminate the threat and strike back. So, what's the conclusion? Well, electronic warfare has been an afterthought for a quarter of a century, but the exponential growth of space and cyber technologies that rely above all on electromagnetic signals gives a renewed sense of urgency to rebuild and recapitalize our electronic warfare capabilities, both offensive and defensive. So the modern challenges are here. We're seeing them today. And let's hope that we continue to close the gap between what's needed and where we are today. So there you have it. A good intro into electronic warfare. And after seeing all the destruction Russia is wreaking on the Ukraine, I'm glad the U.S. and NATO and the Department of Defense have the electronic warfare capability to keep us safe. I hope you found this podcast interesting, and I thank you for listening. Budmos, as the Ukrainians say. Bye-bye until next time.